Hi everyone. Hi, I'm just going to get Nicole on. Hi. Right, let's get Nicole to join. Here we go. Feel like I know a little bit more what I'm doing this week. The old Insta. Here we go. Hi everyone. Oh, it's so good to see you. Hi Amy. Hi Sarah. Hi Carla. Hi Joe. I'm just going to wait for Nicole to join and then we're going to get started. Hi.
Hello.
Hello. It all worked this week.
Yes.
Seamless.
Yeah, totally. Well, good morning to everybody in the US. Good afternoon to the UK. We have quite a bit of questions today, so hopefully
Okay.
we will get to all of them. They all sort of have some theme around your post about thriving and surviving, which is
Okay.
quite interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that we will start with a little bit of a longer question because I think it will lead nicely into some of your posts today.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes from a lady who posted it publicly. I'm assuming a lady posted it publicly on Instagram. I'm going to say Kaz's Wayland,
Mm-hmm.
maybe, however you say that. So she talks a little bit about that she's currently in the corporate world and that, you know, there we go. That she is, given her notice and she's leaving everything. She's
Mm-hmm.
leaving her apartment. She's leaving her job. She's leaving the city that she knows.
Yeah.
And so there's so much uncertainty around that. So she's taken the leap. But she is feeling a little uncertain about some things. So let me read part of her post. So she says, there's so much uncertainty on the horizon, and I can't wait to embrace it, even though it is scary. The more immediate challenge is working through my notice period, spending each day longing for it to be over. Any advice on how to be present in these days when I'm in a space I have actively chosen to leave?
Okay, that's a great question. I think before I go into the question, I'm going to talk a little bit about the surviving, thriving post. It's quite interesting how it came about, actually. A client who's working within the Fear to Founder said, I've had a message that's come through. I don't feel like it's for me. I think it's for you. And Suzanne, absolutely gorgeous, Suzanne Fowler wrote me a note and said, there's something about surviving. It's about people being the energy of survival at the moment. And actually, it was really interesting when I fell into that. It really resonated is how many of us are in the energy of surviving, like getting through the day, getting to the weekend, waiting, the energy of waiting, the energy of functioning. Like if I just get to this point in my life, then I'll give myself permission to thrive. If I just feel less scared or I feel more comfortable, I'll give myself permission to honor what I want. And when you really think about it, like it's a travesty, isn't it? Like we have one life. And of course, we're going to have periods where they're slower and we're more inwards focused and we are in the energy of connecting. But to live your life from a place of doing what makes logical sense and ticking the boxes and being dictated to by society or your educational system about the way that you are supposed to live your life is just kind of blows my mind. And it was something I experienced as well, when I was in the corporate world, is it was me who'd chosen to be there. It was me that was choosing to stay there, even though it wasn't aligned with what I wanted. And I'm seeing this more and more and more, is that people are waiting, in the energy of waiting. And actually, and Michael Singer talks about this in his book Untethered Soul, is about having a different relationship with your life and a different relationship with death as well, in the sense that we never know what's around the corner. And this is about a life well lived. And yes, that means putting ourselves out there. It means being uncertain. It means coming up against fear and doubt. But my goodness, like, it's about fully living. And that's the question I want everybody to think about at the moment is, are you truly living? Are you truly honoring the life that you want? And there will be a million reasons that your ego gives you about why you can't, or why you should wait, or what about the money, or what about the proof. But I want to encourage everybody to ask themselves this: are you in the energy of surviving and waiting at the moment, or in the energy of thriving? And it felt really, really important, particularly at the moment, to bring that up, because there's huge power when we look at our ability to change our lives and change the situation. So that was the first thing. So I digress, but that felt like a really important message to come through today. So in response to Kaz's question, the first thing I thought when I read that is, I want to congratulate her for following soul. But the next thing is, this is all how we choose to perceive things. So you're coming at this notice period as a burden, something you've got to get through, like, I need to be on the other side of it so that I feel free and I'm ready. But what if it's not a burden? What if this notice period is a blessing? What if you look at this differently? What if this period in your life is an opportunity for you to recalibrate, to reset, to dream, to vision, to get into the energy of where you're going? I often use this analogy because it came through to me from my spirit team when I left the corporate world, is that I almost saw like the corporate world as like a park that I'd been existing in and living in and had outgrown. And then so many of us want to walk out of that park and walk into whatever it is, the entrepreneurial space or whatever it is that you want to do. But sometimes we're not ready to walk from one bit to another. Sometimes it's about coming to that space in between. Let's call it like the garden of recalibration or tranquility, whatever we want, of connection. Sometimes it's really important that we have that space. So Kaz, I'd like you to look at it like that. What about you going into this space where you can allow yourself to reset, reconnect, dream, walk, I'm using metaphors, but walk around that garden. What do you want to plant there? What do you want to grow? What does it look like? This can be an opportunity for you to really, really allow yourself to reconnect and have that space whilst you're transitioning between the two. So something to journal on, something to think about, something to put out there is like, what if I saw this as an immense blessing rather than having it as a frustration? What if I saw it as an opportunity for expansion and connection?
Which I think is really important for those people who sometimes don't have a full transition too.
Yeah.
So, you know, one of the things that I've seen very frequently is they'll put their notice and then, like she mentions, there's this kind of waiting period of being done. You know, some people get laid off and then find, you know, another job, or I think you guys call it maybe redundancy or something like that. Those periods of time, because it's happened to me, I have found has been incredibly beautiful. And I think the question within your post that resonated with me the most is this one that I'm going to read, because it really is getting back to what you said. Instead of surviving, you're thriving. And it is, and then what might happen when we are brave enough to turn our back against the fear, the conditioning, the doubts, and instead choose the yearning of our soul. And I think that's so important, because this perpetual thought process really just goes right back to the fear and the doubt and the anxiety. I don't know if you have any comments on that, or I can move to another one.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think let's look at it visually. It's like so many of us are consistently walking towards fear. Yeah, we've got fear in front of us. You can't do this. These are your blocks. You're not capable. It's too risky. What about money? What about what people think? You're not this. You're not that. Limited thoughts, conditioning. And we're consistently walking towards it. We're allowing it to permeate into every decision that we make.
Mm-hmm.
It runs our life. Like it's a low vibrational energy that's based on perception and old stories and limits and constriction that dominates our life. But what if you turn your back on it? And it doesn't mean that it's not there, but rather than that being your focal point that you're walking towards, what if you turn your back on it? And what if you look behind you? And what if you see the world in a different way? What if you see yourself in a different way? What if you start walking towards something else, dreams and trust and love and faith and hope? And this isn't to make it ideological, but what I'm trying to get across here is that we all have a choice. Yeah, we all have a choice of how we show up and what we let define us. The fear is always going to be there. The love and trust is always going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
It was really interesting. Before I walked up here, my daughter's off school today, and I was watching The Worst Witch with her, which like I love. I don't know whether you've heard The Worst Witch, but it's a series of children's books by Jill Murphy. I think it's Jill Murphy. I'm pretty sure it is. And as I was about to leave the room to come up here and do it, one of the witches said, "Can you ever imagine living your life without magic?" Yeah, and that's what left me as I walked out of the room. And it's a bit like that when we come up against the surviving and thriving is, you know, I never came here for the ordinary. I came here for magic, and there is magic everywhere. So what about walking towards the magic? What about walking towards all the opportunities that are available for you? What about walking towards where you want to be, an expansion? And that's what came up with that. I think it was the last line I put in the post that I wrote on surviving versus thriving today. It's that. It's like I want all of us to just say, what am I walking towards? Is it a fear-based wall? Is it a wall that's made of trust and hope? Well, not a wall. There's so much more than a wall. But to think about that, it's really important, because when I sat down after I really hit burnout in the corporate world, my whole life and my decisions were dictated to about what I couldn't do and how risky it was, and what if I fall, and what if it goes wrong. And that was the biggest game changer for me. It's like, what if I look at this differently? What if I look at myself differently? What if I can? What if this is about not fixating on what I can't do and what's scary, but what I can do and how expansive it can get? And then this is always the secret that comes after it, is like, what are you going to choose? That's the bit that we want to really ingrain in ourselves. It's like the fear's there, the love, the trust, the hope, the faith is there, but like, what are you going to actively choose? And that's what the post, I hope, today gets everyone thinking about.
Yeah, I think for me, something that I experienced with you was this one line that you said, but what if you knew it was going to work, right? And I said to myself, oh my gosh, this is all like a construct of my mind. Like, I don't have proof it's not going to work. So I love that question. Like, what would you do today if you just knew it was going to work? And I think we would act from a completely different place.
Yeah, we would.
You know, we wouldn't act from that fear.
Yeah.
So that's lovely. Okay, so we got another question. It came all together and it kind of makes sense all together, but it really has three parts, and I really want you to talk about each part together, but just know that it's from the same person.
Okay.
And she didn't mind me mentioning her name. So Jo Hall, this is for you. Mm-hmm. She said, how can I trust it is my intuition speaking to me, not my ego tricking me? I've heard that intuition speaks kindly, and sometimes that doesn't make sense.
Oh, interesting. What a great question. It's how the guidance makes you feel and the narrative that comes with it. So, look, the soul speaks compassionately, wisely, expansively. It makes you feel open and expansive. You've got to come into like, not what does it make me think, but how does it make me feel? Like, how does it make you feel when your intuition and your soul's coming through? The bit that trips a lot of people up is it can feel really inconvenient of the stuff that comes through soul. What, you want me to like leave my corporate job, and you want me to do this, and you want me to do that. The ego tends to be that voice that's quite critical. It can feel quite restrictive. It sort of runs a narrative along things. So what I would say is, like, with the ego, does it feel like it's coming from your mind? Does it feel like it's based on old stories, old wounds, limitations, restrictions, more of a negative voice? That's how you tend to know it's from ego. With intuition, gut, being led by soul, it's like, well, how does that make you, how do you feel? And does it feel expansive? And does it feel a bit out there? And does it sort of drop in? And do you, when I come into intuition, I literally feel it like moving through my body. When I'm in ego, it's like, it's like that. It's like this dialogue, like this narrative. Well, you could do this, you could do that, you could do this, you could do that, should do this, you should be concerned with this. It seeks external validation. You've got to hit these numbers in your business, and you've got to do this, and this is risky, and you sure you're good enough? You sure you're ready? That's the kind of energy and voice of the ego. You can see that I'm using my hand up by my head. You know, coming, and I did a story about this, I think it was on the weekly download on Monday, into your heart, into your sacral area, like dropping in there. Like, how does it feel? Like, what am I being shown? It often doesn't make sense. And this is where people get caught up. They get caught up in what it's supposed to make sense. Cerebrally, it's not. It's supposed to feel two things. And if you want to strip it all away and simplify it, this is it. Does it make your energy open up and expand? Soul. Does it make your energy restrict and go in? Ego. It's a good place to start. So I know there were another two parts. Keep them coming. Keep them coming.
Yes. They're really good. So, and I'm sure I just saw a couple people say, "Oh, these are really good questions." So, I often hear that your spirit speaks to you in like one-word responses, but
Yeah.
I wonder if my ego is talking in disguise, and so she's unsure of exactly how intuition will show up. So you mentioned that it would be a feeling.
I'm so sorry. 1 second. My daughter's just walked in.
The postman said he needs to sign something, I think.
Just tell him that Mummy's on a call, and then I'm just on a live at the moment. The postman's here. Just explain to Mum I'm on a big live, and that can you sign it for me? Oh. 1 second. Sorry, 1 second, Nicole. 1 second. Let me just.
That's
I'm
okay.
just going to.
I'll just talk to the people here. Let's see who's here. Let's see if I can stop and see. Okay.
It's okay. Don't worry. I've improvised on a piece of paper and said signed by me. So let's see how we get on. And so
Okay.
can you read that second question? Sorry, I had my 9-year-old daughter. I know life is always going on, isn't it? And my 9-year-old daughter sort of staring at me at the door. What was the question?
Okay, so the question was, I often hear your spirit speaks to you as one-word responses, but do wonder if it is my ego talking in disguise, knowing how intuition shows up.
Look, okay, I think this is really, really important to say. Our ego is not the bad guy who's like, I'm going to try and trick Caroline and catch her out at any available opportunity. Our ego is actually there to serve us. Our ego is well-meaning. Our ego is well-meaning in terms of the fact that it wants to make sure we're safe, make sure we're okay. The problem with the ego, it's limited, and it is based on fear, an attachment to fear, of keeping you small and keeping you safe. So don't ever try. What's really important here is that we're not having a battle between our ego and our soul, like they're all parts of our psyche and they're all welcome. So your ego's not going to be sitting there tricking you. My daughter going up again. One second.
So it's okay. I'll look through the comments.
Are you
And
okay?
He gave it to our neighbor. I think he gave it to our neighbours or something.
That's fine. Not to worry. Okay. Perfect. I've got to carry on now.
Hi, Claudia.
Honestly. Oh dear.
But this is you being real. This is exactly why we wanted to do this.
I know, and do you know what's funny? Like I was doing a call with a client earlier about doing something, and I just sort of, she walked in halfway through the conversation. She's so intrigued about what I teach about and what I speak about. So yeah, I think it's really important to recognize that about the ego. It's not trying to trick us, but it's having the ability to observe. Please observe the way that they interact with you. So I recognize what my ego's like. I mean, many of you have heard me joke about giving mine a name. I call her Linda, and I recognize what she's like. She's quite uptight. She never relaxes. She's always got a comment on something. She's, one of those people when you're trying to relax and she's sweeping under your feet and she's there and, we can have a rest, but it's going to mean the demise of your business. And I recognize the energy of her. So I know what she feels like when that voice comes in. Oh, it's like Linda, the ego. I recognize what spirit feels like. I recognize the feeling of being guided and supported and gently nudged and shown things. So for all of you, like, this is about you trusting your relationship with the different parts of your psyche, whether it's like your ego, whether it's your soul or your spirit. Start recognizing what each of them feels like, how it speaks to you, how it shows up, when it shows up. Start becoming more and more familiar, and let go of the belief that you're somehow going to be tricked, and be like, well, no, this is about that part of me, that ever present, all-knowing part of me that has the ability to recognize these different parts of being a human being. That will really help. Mine's fearful, Fiona. Yeah, we all have them. We do.
I think that one other thing that I have learned is, for me, I wanted to just get rid of it, because wouldn't it be great if we didn't live with fear? But you talk about so much that she's there, or he is there to serve you and help you create that, other side of safety, keep you from running in front of the car and stuff. So that's really great. Yeah. Okay, so the third part to this is from Joe. I want to be deeply connected to my intuitive gifts, and I wonder if I'm trying too hard to be connected, and hence then wondering if it's my ego actually connecting and not my intuition. How do I really know? So kind of goes back to the first part, but a little bit deeper.
Okay, so first thing, we make peace with the relationship with the ego. Very important for Joe, because that's a theme coming through. Also, you've got to start trusting yourself more. The ego will run a narrative of like, are you sure you're doing this meditation properly? Are you sure it's having the right impact on you? Are you sure that you're feeling this? Are you sure you're doing it right? Are you sure? It's going to do that. And we need to have the ability that we've all been in it, in like Shavasana or a meditation or a visualization, where you've got that narrative running through, like, what if I'm not doing it properly? So you've got to just be like, well, that's kind of there. It's just the mind, the thinking mind, and it's the ability to transcend that. What I would say is, how much of your guidance are you trying to process in your body? You're a sentient being. You can use your other energy fields. Like, so many of us are trying consistently, and it feels like Joe is, it's all in her head. It's like, well, how about your guidance with how you feel? You talk about being deeply connected to your intuition. So let's take this further. This is about, first of all, redefining your relationship with ego. The second thing is being really familiar with the way that ego speaks, soul speaks, spirit speaks. Third thing is being able to transcend the thinking mind and not being blocked. And the fourth is like, let's get you coming into your body. Let's get you coming into your gut. Let's get you honoring what you're just getting feelings and nudges about, and you can start, it's like a growing good, I'm pleased, Joe. It's about growing a confidence with that connection. And Emma Lucy always taught me this. One of my spiritual mentors is like, I can and I am. And this is the thing, so often we don't trust our innate connectedness, and that has to come from you. It has to come from you honoring feelings and intuition and guidance, and not allowing that thinking mind to pull it apart and being like, well, yeah, there's going to be a narrative running, but what do I choose? I choose to believe that I'm deeply connected, and I consciously look for signs that's true and start there.
That's amazing. How much time do you have today?
Fine, because I'm not doing pickup because Claudia's here and then Harry's getting a lift home with somebody else. So you've got me for as long as you want today. But
well,
as long as Claudia doesn't appear again.
I could keep talking forever. Okay, so I think I want to do 2 more questions, and then we'll end with my usual question because I think they fall in line. So,
oh, and Nicole, just while I remember, did you get the additional question that came through about when journaling doesn't quite fit with you?
That's where
that's okay, good.
Oh, I didn't get the exact
don't worry, I've just remembered because I promised that I'd respond on that to Rachel, so I will.
Yes.
But yeah, I think you might have that.
So that's actually my next question. So it ties into when it doesn't fit and what are other things you could do. So I was talking with the question that I wrote down for the viewers this week, because it kind of falls into the theme of what I'm finding within the clients this week is kind of this desire to have a checklist and make sure everything is checked off. Have it be a prescription where, you know, somebody tells them exactly what to do. And so there are these tendencies to kind of fall back into what I would consider the patriarchal world. You go to work, you have somebody tell you what, you know, the goals and expectations are for the week or the month or the year. Mm-hmm. And then you are like a soldier and you move forward. But often that just doesn't work for everyone. And your in-house coach, Jess, talked to me about, instead of making it a prescriptive checklist, what if it was more like a self-care checklist, which I love. So it could be journaling or yoga or meditation or something along those lines. So what do you think about that? And if journaling doesn't fit for you, how would you connect into that, you know, kind of subconscious writing that you do? Because the pen is doing the conscious part, so the subconscious writing.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many modalities that we can use to connect. You know, we can use journaling, we can use breath, we can use movement, we can use nature, we can use grounding, we can use crystal. I mean, I could go on and on. There are so many different things. And what I'd always say, it's about finding your modality that works for you, and bear in mind it will change. So sometimes I'm like really connected to one way of going in, and other times it's a different modality that I use. So I think it's about finding what works for you. For some people it's like going out into nature and putting the question out there and doing intuitive nature walking and seeing what drops in. For other people it is through writing. Through other people it's through physically moving. I think this one numerology is always interesting because you can kind of see what unsticks certain areas. But I think that if you're not connecting to a certain modality, that's fine. I'm just going to feel into this because I know the client. I've worked with her on a VIP day before. Yeah, I know why. So I don't think the journaling's right. I don't think the journaling is working because sometimes it can mean that we're trying to unstick too much in our head. Yeah, I actually had a call with somebody else about this old client earlier. It's like sometimes we just use our head in order to be able to break down what's coming through, and we can get quite cerebral when we journal, not always, but sometimes. So it feels like it needs to be deeper for me. It feels like we need to come to the physical body. So what about using the physical body in order to find a connection, to move the energy through, to look at where you're recycling energy, to look at where there's stuck areas, to look at where you're holding it in your body. Use your physical body. It's such a gift. Where am I holding onto it? Oh, it's in my shoulders, it's in my stomach, it's here. What would that be related to? Like, what energy body or chakra does that link to? What's it trying to tell me? What guidance is it? Use the physical body, because that can be hugely powerful in terms of opening things up. And I think that another thing that works really well is breath. I think that so often, and again, this came up earlier when I was speaking to an old client, we hold so much with our breath. Yeah, we're holding it in, all that tension, all that momentum, all the doing. And sometimes the power of exhaling is so huge. But let's take it further. Exactly what I was saying to the client earlier. Where in your life or your business or your work are you being called to exhale and release? And what would happen if you did? Yeah, where are you holding your breath in certain areas of your life? Where are you being called to exhale, and why are you stopping yourself from doing it? And what would happen? What would exhaling in your business, in your life, in your relationship look like? Because as we breathe out, we know this, the muscles expand, they relax, they're able to take more in. So look at that as a metaphor for your life. I think that will really, really help.
That's amazing. Yeah. Journaling for me has been a game changer. I was never a journaler before, and I kind of resisted it because it kind of seemed like a task, but it wasn't until I had a complete breakthrough. I was answering a journal prompt, and all this stuff came out I didn't even know that I had internally. And so it can be really powerful, but you can do those same types of things, like you said, in nature, a lot of breath work as well.
Yeah. I think that feels really important. I feel like I need to say this again because I'm feeling the energy of some people who are watching this and who will watch it. Where are you holding your breath in your life? Like, where are you holding your breath? And what would happen if you exhaled and let go and created space? And yes, there's a exhaling would look like not being distracted by money and growth worries. So what's the fear of not being worried about it? What's the fear of letting it go? Because so often we say, if I hold my breath and I control and hold on to this energetically, it means everything's going to be fine and the money will come in and I'm holding myself accountable, and that's what I've associated with growth. But actually it's the opposite. If you exhale, if you release, if you surrender, think about what that does physically to your body, your cells, your tissues. It does the same thing energetically to what it allows things to go into. And I know it's something I've had to work through. It's like a fear of exhaling and surrendering and being and opening and expanding, because what's always felt safe for me is to control and to hold on. That's always felt safe, because then I'm like monitoring and creating tension and creating momentum. And actually the more I play with the energy of exhaling as well, because it's everything in balance, the more I play with the energy of that to balance out the inhaling, tension, expansion, all of those things, it just changes. So play with it. Play with the energy of breath, exhale space and opportunities and clarity, and create space within you as an energetic being, but literally in all those areas. Breathe clients in, breathe more abundance in, breathe more connection, and use your breath. Your breath, it's your Harriet Jackson, who taught me about numerology, taught me this exceptionally well. It's like your eighth energy body is your connection to your prana, it's connection to breath, it's connection to source. Yeah, it's really powerful. When you breathe, you allow that connection to open and to deepen. So are you allowing yourself to do that? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think too, one thing that I was talking with a client about last week was, what if we stopped this resting equals lazy? Instead, resting actually equals being more productive because, I gave this example of I took a nap and then I had all these downloads and I did like a month's worth of work in like 45 minutes. And I was like, whoa, this is amazing. So, once again, breathing into that thought and mindset around maybe rest is the key. We all think that hustling is, but maybe rest is.
It is. And my mentor at the moment, Katrina Ruth, summarizes this brilliantly. And we talked actually about this morning on our call. It's like, think about an electric car and think about plugging it in and it powers up and it gives you that momentum to move forwards. We're no different. And so many of us are trying to make decisions and move forwards when we don't, as she says, have stability. We don't have connection. So everything we build from that place is built on this kind of, rocky surface. The more that you're creating time and prioritizing, when we say rest, I don't just mean lying down. I mean like energetic rest and emotional rest, and turning your mind off and using the tools available for you to get outside of your head so that you can allow that greater stream of consciousness, the access to the quantum, to flow through you. It's so, so important. And actually, you will see this as part of my team. You'll see my process as I kind of go in, I connect, it all comes through. I let it have its moment of coming in, coming in, coming in, coming in, coming in, until I feel like that connection and that message has been delivered. And then I've done that from a place of being connected in, of being in it, of being restful. And then I take it and I say, well, what are we going to do with that? What's the humanness? What's the masculine? What are we going to do to turn that into something? And it's such a powerful combination. So I'd actually argue that connecting to rest, stillness, being, breathing out is a fundamental part so that you can get the momentum of the breath in to move forwards.
Yeah. And I think, having been a witness in your world for a little bit now, I'm realizing that in the corporate world, when somebody would be quiet or acting off, specifically a woman who has a cycle, I would be offended by that because I'm like, oh, did I do something wrong or what's going on? And now I'm realizing it's part of our cyclical being. And, we have the 4 seasons and each week is a different season. And I recognize that in you, like your boxer note this morning was so lively and awake and a totally different energy than, let's say, a week or two ago. And it's comforting because now I'm recognizing that within myself. And I think that for the audience, that's a really important thing as well, to understand your cycle a little bit more, because then you can understand your moods. And this moon, I read a whole thing about how the Scorpion full moon, Scorpio full moon this time was, an emotional time. So
Yeah, and it was, I have to tell the story because it really made me laugh. I've had a big thing about wolves recently, long story, seen loads of wolves and visualization. Matt said last night, I woke up this morning, he said, you were howling like a wolf in your sleep last night. How bizarre, around full moon time. And I was like, yeah, so amazing. So I think we've got time for one more question. Is there one more? Yeah, so let's do one more question and then we'll wrap it up.
So the one question that I want to end with, because I think it's something everybody should know, is so what has been coming up for you this week? Mm-hmm. Or what would you say has been a common theme for you this week, either personally or in your business?
Oh, do you know what? I'm always about honesty and transparency. So I'm going to tell you this. This came through yesterday. I found myself writing and journaling about how I've been working towards getting my business in a certain place. Yeah. And I find myself with this incredible business, this abundance, this team, balance, space, everything that I desired, feeling really content and connected. And I started thinking, like, is it okay, like, to feel like this? And I picked up my phone to voice note my coach, my mentor. And I stopped myself. I was like, oh my goodness, I'm actually going to voice note my mentor and in essence ask if it's okay to be happy.
Mm.
I was like, that's a bit weird, Caroline. Yeah. And then I was like, what is sitting behind it? So I kind of felt into it and I journaled into it. And I was like, two things. One, that I've got fear that it means something's going to go wrong. And something bad's going to happen. So I'm looked at that. Well, I kind of looked at it and also have chosen to opt out of that paradigm. The second thing is that I associate feeling contented, calm, and chilled with plateauing. I no longer see it as the demise of my business, which I used to. That's kind of gone, that belief, which just shows the work I've done around this. But there's definitely something coming up around, it means I'm going to plateau, and it means that, like, I won't, I think there's a fear for me. It's like I know that I'm here to do such huge things and help so many people. And then there's this fear that, like, but what if I don't live up to that potential? And I think that when I'm in that's the thing that my ego fixates on and attaches to. So that's been coming up a lot for me on the ego front. But then I look at it and I decide that I'm not really energetically available for that story, that it's fear-based, it doesn't belong to me. And I choose instead. I choose the better it gets, the better it gets. Oh, I think we've lost Nicole. Well, anyway, I'm hoping that helped you all with some guidance for me. I'm going to just try and get Nicole back. And if we can't, then I will wrap it up. I hope today has been good. I hope you all enjoyed the little interruption. Hello. So I was just saying, you can catch up with the ego bit, but I was just explaining for me about how I'd worked through it and what came out. So that was the ego. Connection to spirit. I mean, I've talked about the howling in my sleep like a wolf. So poor Matt, honestly, the fact, for somebody who's like not into all the witchy stuff, I think he's just like, what is happening? So anyway, that on the spiritual side. And then soul, I mean, a deep contentment. So that's been really special, a real that I've really honoured the whole way what I've always wanted to do in the life I've wanted to create, and then this is the reality I find myself in. So yeah, and there's loads of exciting things happen. You know, I'm starting to write my book, and I had the wonderful Alex around earlier, who's going to do all the illustrations. We're doing something very, very cool with it, very different. I'm really excited about that. We've hired a new team member, the wonderful Hannah, so we've grown to a team of 5 now, which is amazing. Yeah, so very, very excited. I'm so glad you've enjoyed. Thank you for being such a lovely group. It's so wonderful to see these amazing comments. We're so lucky with the people that we have in this space, so thank you. And then we'll do the same. We'll be back 2 p.m. next week. Please send through any questions. I don't actually see any of them in advance, so yeah, it's kind of nice just to see what comes through. I like working that way. So sending you loads of love, Nicole, as ever. Thank you so much for doing such a brilliant session.
And if you need to email questions, Nicole at Caroline-Britton.com, or message me or Caroline on Instagram. But if you want to keep it a secret, make sure to send it to me.
All right. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone. I'll see you next week.
Bye.
See you later. Bye. 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 Bye.